What's going on, y'all? It's Hilario Hernandez here with randomBibleProverb.com. Topic today is Proverbs chapter 23 verse 9. Waste is the topic. Comes from chapter 23 verse 9 of Proverbs. The synopsis is the misuse and squandering of resources. God condemns the waste of resources which he provides, especially spiritual provisions such as grace and opportunity. Sometimes extravagance in God's service is mistaken for waste. Proverbs chapter 23 verse 9 says, "Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words." The first thing regarding waste is waste of material resources. An example of that is squandering is folly. Luke chapter 15 verse 13 through 16 says, "Not many days later the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into the far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything." Second scripture regarding squandering as folly is Proverbs chapter 21 verse 20. "Precious treasure and oil is in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it." Another example of the squandering is folly as waste of material resources. Luke chapter 16 verse 1, "He also said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions." James chapter 5 verse 1 through 6 says, "Come now, you rich, and weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers have mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter, and you have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you." Very interesting. Alright, and a second subtopic of the waste of material resources is that the waste of material resources is a consequence of yielding to temptation. Proverbs chapter 29 verse 3, "He who loves wisdom makes his father glad, but a companion of prostitutes squanders his wealth." Wow. Proverbs chapter 5 verse 17 through 20 through 14, "And now, sons, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the merciless. Lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner. And at the end of your life you groan, when your flesh and your body are consumed, and you say, 'How I hated discipline, and my heart despised the reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers, or incline my ear to my instructors. I am at the brink of utter ruin, and in the assembly of the I am at the brink of utter ruin in the assembled congregation." Wow. A third subtopic of waste of material resources is Jesus Christ avoids waste. John chapter 6 verse 12 through 13 says, "And when he had eaten their fill, he told the disciples, 'Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost.' So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten." Next, the second topic regarding waste is spiritual resources should not be wasted. The first thing under that is God's grace. Jonah chapter 2 verse 8 says, those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope of steadfast love. John chapter 12 verse 35 through 36 says, so Jesus said to them, the light is among you for a little while longer. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. The one who walks in the darkness does not know where he is going. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may become sons of light. When Jesus had said these things, he departed and hid himself from them. Third scripture regarding spiritual resources should not be wasted. God's grace. Galatians chapter 4 verse 9 through 11. But now that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God, how can you turn back again to the weak and worthless elementary principles of the world, whose slaves you want to be once more? You observe the days and months and seasons and the years. I am afraid that I may have labored over you in vain. Wow, some interesting scriptures here. Check out the blog post. I'll leave a link in the description. Second subtopic under the spiritual resources should not be wasted is God-given abilities. Matthew chapter 24, 25 verse 14 through 13. I believe this is the parable of the talents. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 more talents. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who received 1 talent went and dug it into the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who received the 5 talents came forward, bringing the 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own and with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and to he who will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, into the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Wow. So there's a second scripture under God-given abilities as spiritual under the topic that spiritual resources should not be wasted, in Luke chapter 19 verse 12 through 27. And it's another instance, I believe, of the... No, it's not. So check that out in the blog post. There's another one there. Alright, so the third subtopic regarding spiritual resources should not be wasted is opportunities for service. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 16 says, making the best use of the time because these days are evil. John chapter 9 verse 4 says, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. Galatians chapter 6 verse 10 says, so then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Colossians chapter 4 verse 5, walk in wisdom toward the outsiders, making the best use of the time. And a fourth subtopic regarding spiritual resources should not be wasted is spiritual teaching. So don't waste spiritual teaching, and it can be wasted. Here's several examples. Matthew chapter 7 verse 6, do not give to the dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Then Proverbs chapter 9 verse 7 says, whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. And Proverbs chapter 23 verse 9, which is the main verse of this particular blog post regarding the wasting of spiritual teaching, says, do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. And the last scripture regarding the wasting of spiritual teaching is in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 14. It says, the natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Point number 3 regarding waste is that there's examples of wasted lives. Esau lived for the pleasure of the moment and threw away his spiritual inheritance, as you read in Genesis chapter 25 verse 29 through 34. It says, once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted. Therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. Esau said, I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went away. Thus Esau despised his birthright. And it's also mentioned in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 16. It says that no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. A second example of wasted lives is Samson. Judges chapter 16 verse 18 through 21. It says, when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up again, for he has told me his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hands. She made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles, and he ground at the mill in the prison. A third example of wasted lives is King Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 21 says, and David came to Saul and entered his service, and Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 17 through 27 says, and David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and Jonathan his son. And he said, it should be taught to the people of Judah. Behold, it is written. In the book of Jeshua, he said, "Your glory, O Israel, is slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Tell it not to Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. Your mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or no rain upon you, nor your fields or offerings, for there the shield of the mighty was defiled, and the shield of Saul not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, and the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely, in life and in death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, reap over Saul, who clothed you luxuriously in scarlet, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very, very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished." Next, the fourth subtopic as an example of wasted lives is Judas Iscariot. Matthew 27 verse 3-5, it says, "Then when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he changed his mind and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. They said, What is that to us? See to it yourself. And throwing down the pieces of silver into the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself." The fourth thing regarding waste is devotion to God is not waste. Matthew chapter 26 verse 6-13 says, "Now when Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came up to him with an alabaster flask and a very expensive ointment, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at table. And when the disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, Why this waste? For this could have been sold for a large sum and given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, Why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a beautiful thing to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Well, and the second scripture regarding the devotion to God not waste. So when devotion to God is not waste, second scripture is John chapter 12 verse 1-8. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? He said this, not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. Jesus said, Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me. Wow. And the last topic number 5 regarding waste, is that waste as the destruction of life and land. Number 1, the frailty of human beings. Job chapter 13 verse 28 says man wastes away like a rotten thing. like a garment that is moth-eaten. Job chapter 33 verse 21, it says, his flesh is so wasted away that it cannot be seen, and his bones that were not seen stick out. Psalm chapter 32 verse 3, it says, for when I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 16, so we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. Lamentations 4 chapter 4 verse 9, happier were the victims of the sword than the victims of of hunger, who wasted away, pierced by lack of fruits of the field. A second subtopic regarding waste as the destruction of life and land. Jeremiah chapter 34 verse 22, behold, I have commanded, declares the Lord, and will bring them back to this city, and they will fight against it and take it and burn it with fire. I will make the cities of Judah a desolation without inhabitant. Leviticus chapter 26 verse 31 through 33, and I will lay your cities waste. I'll be right there, baby. And I will lay your cities waste and will make your sanctuaries desolate, and I will not smell your pleasing aromas, and I myself will devastate the land, so that your enemies will settle in it, shall be appalled at it. And I will scatter you among the nations, and I will unsheath the sword after you, and your land shall be a desolation, and your cities shall be a waste. Another scripture is Leviticus chapter 26 verse 39, and those of you who are left shall rot away in your enemies' lands, because of their iniquity, and also because of the iniquities of their fathers, they shall rot away like them. There's several scriptures in Deuteronomy, Numbers chapter 5 verse 21, Psalms 106:43. Many times he delivered them, but they were rebellious in their purposes, and were brought low through their iniquity. Behold, the Lord will empty the earth and make it desolate, and he will twist its sacrifice and scatter its inhabitants. Hosea chapter 5 verse 9, Ephraim shall become a desolation in the day of punishment. Among the tribes of Israel I make known what is sure. Alright, to wrap all this up in conclusion, the synopsis of the topic being waste, and the synopsis is the misuse and squandering of resources. God condemns the waste of resources which he provides, especially spiritual provisions such as grace and opportunity. Sometimes extravagance in God's service is mistaken for waste. The scripture is Proverbs chapter 23 verse 9, do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. So the first thing was the waste of material resources. There's three things under that. One is squandering of folly. Luke chapter 15 verse 13 through 16 is a primary example. The second thing is waste as a consequence of yielding to temptation. Proverbs chapter 29 verse 3. And the third thing is Jesus Christ avoids waste, as you'll see in John chapter 6 verse 12 through 13. The second thing was spiritual resources should not be wasted. God's grace should not be wasted. Jonah chapter 2 verse 8 is a primary example. The second thing is God-given abilities should not be wasted. Matthew chapter 25 verse 13 through 14 is a parable of the talents. And then Luke chapter 19 verse 12 through 27 is another example. And the third thing regarding not wasting spiritual resources is opportunities for service. Don't waste the opportunity for service, as you'll see as Paul explains in Ephesians chapter 5 verse 16. And not wasting spiritual resources is the fourth thing, and Matthew chapter 7 verse 6 is a primary example for that. And the third topic regarding waste is that there's examples of wasted lives in the Bible. Esau is a primary example. He lived for pleasure of the moment, and threw away his spiritual inheritance because of the pleasure of the moment. He was living in the pleasure of the moment. Genesis chapter 25 verse 29 to 34, that experience is mentioned, and then he's also mentioned in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 16. Samson is another example of life being wasted. Judges chapter 16 verse 18 through 21. King Saul is another example. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 21 and 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 17 through 27. And the last example mentioned in this blog post is of a wasted life is Judas Iscariot. Matthew chapter 27 verse 3 through 5 is that example. And the fourth topic regarding waste is devotion to God is not waste. If you we refer to Matthew chapter 26 verse 6 through 13, where I believe it was the prostitute had anointed Jesus' head with oil, and she used the entire jar. And I think Judas was, or somebody, or he was mentioning that it wasn't waste. Yeah, right here, chapter 26 verse 6 through 13. Why do you trouble this woman? Because it says why this waste? So the disciples thought she was wasting that entire flask of expensive ointment on Jesus when she poured it on his head when he was leaning at table, when he reclined at table. So that's a beautiful example of not wasting, devotion to God not being waste. And the fifth thing is that waste is explained as a destruction of life and land. First, the frailty of human beings. Job chapter 13 verse 28 is a good example of that. And waste as a result of the judgment of God. Was the second topic under waste as a destruction of life and land. And the example there is Jeremiah chapter 34 verse 22. And all these scriptures come from the ESV Bible. Thanks a lot for watching, you guys. I appreciate y'all watching this video. If you find it helpful, leave a like, comment, and share. And stay tuned for the next video. Thank you. Bye.